Exxon says it will spend $2.5 billion on the project, even before a decision is made on whether it can go forward. A lot of that money will be spent here in Nikiski for work necessary to design and permit an LNG plant.
They drill down, it goes down about 150 feet, and they remove sections of the earth.
Sections that will tell whether the soils can handle the weight of a 250,000-ton LNG plant.
I often put it into context by saying it's the equivalent of about 160 to 170,000 Ford F-150 pickup trucks.
It is hard to get your arms around something of this magnitude that is, in reality, several mega projects rolled into one. Exxon has begun work to tap its vast Point Thompson field for gas and connect to fields owned by other producers. A plant must be built on the slope to treat that gas, which must be sent down 800 miles of underground pipes to Nikiski, where another plant will super chill and liquefy the gas so it can be shipped out on tankers. The price tag for the entire project, $45 to $65 billion. About half of that cost, the plant in Nikiski. We're here at the ConocoPhillips LNG plant to give you a sense of the scale of the Alaska LNG project. So take a look at this and multiply it by 18 times. But Nikiski has an industrial area with room for the project. Exxon has already bought about 300 acres of land and needs several hundred more for the overall facility, to include storage tanks and a buffer zone.
This is such a large resource, it's such a large project, we have to think in terms of decades. It'll take many years to permit, it'll take several years to build, and then we'll want to operate for 30 or 40 years or more.
So what will it look like when the work begins in earnest? It will take 3,000 to 5,000 people to build the LNG plant, with another 300 needed to run it. Crews like this one, who are studying the terrain and currents of Cook Inlet, add to the region's payroll. So far, millions have been spent in the early phases of this project, and the region has only begun to plumb its economic depths.
We have to get many permits, and each of those permits requires many data elements.
Steve Butt calls them the key to a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But for now, Exxon says its mission is to reduce risk and uncertainty. And like the silty waters of the inlet, it's hard to see what the future holds and whether the currents of time and circumstance will carry the project to completion.
What we see here is a 60-meter meteorological tower.
It measures things like the wind speed and direction, data needed to understand how emissions from the proposed Nikiski plant might affect the environment, data regulators will need.
I studied environmental science here in Alaska at UAA, and I now get to apply that on a project here in Alaska. So I'm personally and professionally invested in this project.
Right now, the pay dirt is in the paperwork from field studies like this one, or in support services, like this warehouse leased to Exxon as a staging area for its underwater studies on Cook Inlet. And if all goes well, there will be a rising tide of jobs for years to come.
This is a very big project, huge. Biggest project ever in North America.
And the biggest part would be here on the Kenai Peninsula, poised to be home to a $20 to $30 billion LNG plant and export facility.
And we have a unique opportunity to start laying some groundwork and doing some planning for what we want it to look like.
The Kenai Peninsula didn't get that chance in the 1960s when oil and gas development took off, and the region experienced what some called malignant growth.
We were split shifting at schools. There was huge growth and helter-skelter developments going up all over the place.
But when Exxon invited the community to gaze into the economic crystal ball, most people said they feel good about the future.
It should cause a big economic boom, and the trick will be to make sure it's almost all positive.
I think it's very exciting, and I have 2 grandsons who are at the University of Alaska in engineering, and perhaps they'll have jobs for the future.
I think for a community that largely depends on the oil and gas industry, this is a new generation of opportunity.
Exxon's first choice for an LNG site? Land in the Nikiski Industrial Complex, neighbors to the Agrium fertilizer plant and the ConocoPhillips LNG plant. Both would benefit from the large volume of gas Alaska LNG would provide. And it doesn't hurt that Exxon has been giving local contractors the full court press.
It was the first time really that I can remember that a company came in and really walked the talk on hiring local.
Not everyone in this room is happy. One family worries about what will happen to people who fish on the shores of the proposed site.
It's right there. That's our fish site. We'll do what we have to do to keep our fishery, and I hope we can do it together. I'm not against industry, but I don't trust nobody.
There's almost no beach for set netting in the Cook Inlet that will rival that beach.
My grandfather, and now my dad's the permit holder, and then hopefully I will be the permit holder.
There are also families who have homesteads on the proposed site.
I can't fight it because it's something that's just going to happen.
Janice Wilsack has raised 5 daughters in this house and cared for her husband there until his very last breath.
I've done a lot of crying, but every day I get stronger and I lean on the Lord more and more.
Exxon says it will try hard to find ways to work with people because in a project that could last a half-century, it's important to be good neighbors.
There's always change. Anyway, for good or bad, I can't tell you, but, things don't stay the same.
The field work in Nikiski is a sure sign things have already changed in the quest to move North Slope gas to market. Never have we come this far.